The lights cut out in the middle of her sentence. 1 second, the executive floor is glowing under polished chandeliers. The next, it's swallowed in darkness. A sharp electrical pop snaps through the ceiling panels, followed by the grinding metal shriek of elevators jerking to a halt. The emergency alarms don't ring all at once. They chirp unevenly, like nervous heartbeats. Somewhere above them, something hums too hot. The faint smell of burning insulation creeps into the air. Ethan Cole stands near the security desk, a thin envelope clenched in his hand. Termination papers. 10 minutes earlier, CEO Victoria Hale had stood beneath those same bright lights and dismantled him in front of senior leadership, accusing him of bypassing protocol, of risking corporate security. She had done it calmly, publicly. And Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, had heard every word. Now the marble lobby feels colder, silent. Elevators frozen between floors, executives trapped in steel boxes in the sky, servers blinking out one by one, and the only man who truly understands the building's electrical backbone has already been escorted out. Victoria slowly turns toward him. Ethan hasn't moved. Neither has Lily. Her small hand wraps tightly around his. Then the emergency radio crackles through the dark. "We've got people trapped. Subscribe to Just Dad Things for more powerful single dad stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from." Ethan Cole lives in Brook Hollow, a town that still smells faintly of machine oil and cut lumber, even though most of the factories closed years ago. The old brick smokestacks remain, tall and empty, like reminders of a time when one steady job could carry an entire family. Now it takes 2, sometimes 3. Ethan wakes before the sun every morning. Not because he is ambitious, not because he is chasing anything, because there is no one else to do it. The coffee brews while the house is still dark. He moves quietly through the kitchen, packing a lunchbox with careful precision. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, a folded napkin with a small handwritten note tucked inside. He learned that trick after his wife passed away 4 years ago. Billy had cried the first week without those little messages, so he started writing them. "Be brave today. You've got this. Proud of you." Lily Cole is 8 years old and carries more maturity in her small shoulders than most adults he knows. She brushes her own hair most mornings. She reminds him when library books are due. She pretends not to notice when he studies the stack of bills at the counter a little too long. After her mother died from a long illness, Ethan made a decision that changed everything. He stepped down. He had been a senior electrical engineer in the city, designing complex commercial systems, overseeing teams, earning enough to build savings. But the hours were brutal. Travel was constant. Late nights were expected, and Lily had already lost one parent to hospital rooms and quiet beeping machines. She was not going to lose another to conference calls and airport terminals. So he took the maintenance system supervisor role at Hale Financial Tower in Brook Hollow. On paper, it looked like a step backward. Smaller title, smaller paycheck. But it offered something priceless: predictable hours. He could walk Lily to school most mornings. He could sit in the front row at her second-grade winter concert. He could make spaghetti on Tuesdays and help with math homework without checking his phone every 5 minutes. Predictable meant safety. Predictable meant stability. And stability is everything to a child who has already experienced loss. Still, stability comes at a cost. The mortgage has been late twice in the past year. He managed to catch up both times by taking on small electrical repair jobs around town, rewiring Mrs. Donnelly's basement, fixing a breaker panel at the corner diner, installing ceiling fans on weekends while Lily colored quietly in a folding chair nearby. He never complains. He never tells Lily that the health insurance attached to his tower job is the only reason her pediatric checkups don't send him into panic. He never tells her that the employee tuition assistance program is the only way he can even dream of keeping her in Brook Hollow Academy, the small private school her mother loved. The tower job is not just employment. It is health coverage. It is routine. It is a thin line between secure and slipping. There's also a document he keeps locked in the bottom drawer of his bedside table, a custody agreement signed after his wife's death. Billy's grandparents, grieving and protective, insisted on a clause that allows a custody review if financial instability or housing insecurity becomes evident. They trust him. But paper does not bend for trust. Paper bends for evidence. If he loses his job, even temporarily, it could trigger conversations he is not ready to have, conversations that could fracture Lily's world again. So when CEO Victoria Hale accused him of accessing a restricted electrical control panel, when she stood under the bright lobby lights and questioned his judgment, his authority, his professionalism, Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. He had accessed the panel to prevent an overload. He had seen warning signs in the cooling system. He had acted quickly because that is what responsible engineers do. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was perception, and perception belonged to the woman holding the company's future in her hands. When she terminated him in front of executives, in front of security staff, in front of his daughter, he did not argue loudly. He did not defend himself with ego. He stood still. He absorbed it because Lily was watching. And when Lily's small voice cracked through the marble lobby, when she looked up at Victoria and said, "My dad fixes things," he didn't do anything wrong. Something inside Ethan tightened in a way he had not felt in years. Not just fear, not just anger, humiliation. Not for losing the job, but for losing it in front of the one person he had promised would always feel safe. If that tower job disappears, so does more than income. So does insurance. So does tuition. So does the fragile stability he built, brick by brick, after grief nearly swallowed them both. And as he stands in that darkened lobby, termination papers in his hand, elevators frozen above them, Ethan knows one truth with terrifying clarity. He cannot afford to fall, not for himself, for Lily. Victoria Hale did not inherit Hale Financial. She built it. 25 years earlier, she started in a rented office above a hardware store on Main Street, armed with a used desk and a loan no one believed she would repay. She worked through nights, signed contracts other firms overlooked, survived recessions by tightening margins and tightening herself even more. Every expansion came with sacrifice. Every success was earned inch by inch. In Brook Hollow, her name means precision. It means discipline. It means control. Employees joke that Victoria can hear a spreadsheet miscalculation from 3 floors away. She arrives before most executives and leaves after the cleaning crews. Her life runs on structure. Meetings start on time. Reports are exact. Protocol is not optional. Because in her experience, chaos is what destroys companies. And she has spent decades preventing chaos. Today is not an ordinary day. In just a few hours, Hale Financial is scheduled to finalize a merger with Henderson Capital, a regional investment firm that will double their portfolio and secure the company's future for decades. The review call is already scheduled. Lawyers are waiting. Analysts are prepared. One technical disruption, one security breach, one sign of instability could derail everything. The board has been tense all week. So when security informs Victoria that Ethan Cole accessed the building's restricted grid override panel without executive clearance, she does not see a maintenance supervisor trying to prevent overheating. She sees exposure. The override panel is not meant to be touched during a transition window. It connects to backup servers, security protocols, emergency redundancy. In a week like this, that panel represents vulnerability. Her mind does not search for motive. It calculates risk. She calls for him immediately. The confrontation happens in the open lobby, beneath towering glass windows that flood the space with light. Executives are moving between meetings. Assistants are passing through with folders. The merger energy hums in the air. Victoria does not raise her voice. She does not insult him. Her tone is measured, controlled, almost surgical. Mr. Merger. Cole, I'm being told you accessed the restricted grid override at 9:42 this morning. Without executive authorization, is that accurate? Ethan tries to answer calmly. He explains that the server cooling units were showing abnormal temperature spikes. He says he attempted to contact Facilities Command but received no response. He tells her he has accessed the panel before under verbal approval during emergencies. He speaks with the quiet confidence of someone who knows what he is doing. But Victoria hears something else. She hears deviation from protocol. She hears someone acting independently during a legally sensitive week. She hears potential liability. And liability, today of all days, is unacceptable. You understand, she says evenly, that during a merger transition, any unauthorized systems override could be interpreted as a breach of operational integrity. He tries again. He explains the cascade failure risk. He explains that waiting for written clearance could have resulted in overheating across 3 floors. He explains that he acted to protect the building. Victoria's expression does not change. Because in her world, there are lines. And if those lines blur, control disappears. And when control disappears, companies collapse. So she makes the decision quickly, not dramatically, not emotionally. Effective immediately, your employment with Hale Financial is terminated for violation of executive security protocol. You will receive standard severance in accordance with your contract. The words land cleanly, professionally, like a signature at the bottom of a document. Security steps closer, not aggressively, but procedurally. Around them, conversations quiet. The power imbalance is unmistakable. She stands elevated slightly on the marble step leading to the executive wing. He stands below, a maintenance badge clipped to his belt. And beside him stands Lily, small, still, watching. Victoria notices the child only after the decision is made. Lily's eyes are bright with confusion and fear. She looks up at her father first, then at Victoria. "You're being mean," Lily says, her voice trembling. "My dad fixes things. He doesn't break them." The lobby becomes even quieter. For the briefest second, something flickers across Victoria's face, a memory perhaps. A younger version of herself, standing in a different room, listening to adults argue about things she did not fully understand. But the moment passes, because she cannot allow emotion to steer the ship today. If she wavers publicly, the board sees weakness. If she hesitates, uncertainty spreads. And uncertainty during a merger is dangerous. So she straightens slightly. Her voice softens, but her decision does not. "This is not personal," she says. "It's about protecting the company." And she believes that. In her mind, she has not attacked a father. She has enforced structure. She has guarded thousands of employees whose livelihoods depend on the merger succeeding. She has contained risk before it could spread. To Victoria Hale, control equals safety, and safety equals responsibility. As Ethan stands there absorbing the dismissal and Lily clutches his hand, Victoria convinces herself she has made the correct call. Because leaders must act. Leaders must decide. And today, she believes she has just protected everything she built. Even after the words are spoken, after the badge is requested and the envelope is pressed into his hand, Ethan does not argue. He does not slam the papers down. He does not defend himself with volume. He nods once, kneels briefly so he is eye level with Lily, and tells her softly, "We're okay." Then he stands. Before security can guide him toward the exit, he glances toward the operations desk. "There's a load imbalance building in the auxiliary transformer," he says calmly. "If the cooling system keeps cycling like that, you'll see a cascade within 15 minutes. Check panel 3 on the lower mechanical floor." and reset the secondary breaker before it overheats. The guard blinks at him. "That won't be necessary, sir." Ethan hesitates only a second. "I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm trying to prevent one." But the moment has already moved on. Victoria has turned away. Executives are murmuring about schedule adjustments. The security officer gestures again toward the door. "Procedure must continue." Ethan exhales quietly. He takes Lily's hand. They begin walking toward the lobby entrance. And then the building goes dark. The lights do not dim gradually. They snap off. A violent pop echoes above them, sharp and electrical. Somewhere deep in the structure, something groans under strain. The polished lobby shifts from bright marble to shadowed gray in less than a second. Emergency lights flicker on in staggered pulses, casting everything in red and pale white. Above them, elevators grind to a halt. The sound is unmistakable, metal dragged against resistance. Then silence. A thin smell of overheated wiring creeps through the air. For half a heartbeat, no one moves. Then radios begin crackling. Car 2 is stuck between 21 and 22. Server floor just went offline. Cooling's not responding. Voices overlap. Panic begins to thread through the professionalism. Victoria turns sharply toward her operations team. What just happened? Engineers rush toward their tablets and wall monitors. Fingers fly across touchscreens. Nothing responds. One of them mutters, "That shouldn't be possible." Another tries to access the system dashboard. The interface stalls. The custom grid that modernized the building 5 years ago was supposed to make failures impossible. Redundant pathways, automated load balancing, layered safety nets. But none of them built it. They inherited it. Ethan did not. He designed it. In the center of the lobby, while chaos starts to rise, Ethan does something almost invisible. He kneels. Lily's small fingers are trembling in his hand. The sudden darkness has shaken her. The echo of grinding elevators still hangs in the air. "Hey," he says gently, brushing soot from her sleeve where it drifted down from the ceiling vents. "Look at me." Her eyes are wide. "It's just electricity being dramatic," he tells her with a small smile. "It does that sometimes." "Are people stuck?" she whispers. He glances upward briefly, listening. "Yes," he says honestly, "but they won't be for long." He stands slowly, not rushing, not claiming authority, just assessing. He looks toward the operations desk where engineers are arguing over error codes. He listens to the radio chatter. He smells the faint burn of insulation. And he knows exactly what happened. He had warned them. The load imbalance had been building for days. The cooling system spike was the trigger. Without the manual override he initiated earlier, the system would have failed sooner. But now, with the breaker improperly reset and no one checking panel 3, the cascade had moved through the secondary transformer just as he predicted. Security finally approaches him again. "We need everyone to exit the building," the guard says, uncertainty creeping into his voice now. Ethan doesn't move toward the door. "Your auxiliary transformer just tripped," he says calmly. "If you don't isolate the third bus feed, the backup generator's going to overload next. And then you'll lose emergency lighting, too." The guard stares at him. Across the lobby, one of the engineers looks up sharply. "How would you know that?" the engineer asks. Ethan meets his eyes. "Because I wrote the load redistribution algorithm." There is a pause. A beat of realization. Someone at the operations desk whispers, "Wait, he redesigned the grid 5 years ago, didn't he?" Another voice answers quietly, almost stunned. "He designed half of it." The words drift across the lobby like a confession. Victoria hears them. She turns slowly. For the first time since the lights went out, she is not issuing commands. She is listening. The quiet maintenance supervisor she dismissed 10 minutes ago, the man in work boots and a modest badge, is not just someone who fixes light fixtures and checks wiring. He is the architect of the building's electrical backbone, the system everyone depends on, the redundancy she trusted, the stability she assumed. And he is standing by the exit with termination papers in his hand. Meanwhile, the radios grow more frantic. We've got 2 executives in car 4. Someone's reporting shortness of breath in car 2, server floor temperature rising. Victoria steps forward, tension finally cracking through her controlled expression. Why aren't we restoring the grid? An engineer shakes his head. We don't have the override access. The configuration is customized. We've never had to manually isolate it before. Silence stretches for one heavy second. Ethan looks down at Lily again. She looks back at him with complete trust. Daddy fixes things, she whispers. He swallows. He has every reason to walk out that door. He has just been humiliated, dismissed, reduced to a liability. But above them, people are trapped. Not board members, not executives, people, assistants, interns, security guards. He hands Lily gently to one of the receptionists. Can you stay with her for a minute? He asks softly. Then he turns back toward the operations desk. Not for Victoria, not for recognition, not for apology. For the people stuck between floors in metal boxes with fading air. And even as he steps forward, he does not carry anger. He carries responsibility, because that is who he is. And whether employed or not, integrity does not switch off when the lights do. The crisis does not simmer, it accelerates. Within minutes, the emergency radio chatter shifts from confusion to alarm. Car 2 occupant is reporting difficulty breathing. Repeat, difficulty breathing. Server floor temperature climbing past safe threshold. Fire suppression system has entered standby. The words stack on top of each other until the lobby feels smaller, tighter, charged with a different kind of electricity. An assistant rushes toward Victoria, pale. One of the employees trapped in elevator 2 has asthma. She says she can't get enough air. Somewhere above them, someone pounds against metal. Another radio crackles. If the server racks overheat, we'll trigger automatic shutdown. The merger call is less than 2 hours away. 2 hours. That was supposed to be the defining moment of Hale Financial's future. A clean transition. A confident announcement. Stability. Now the tower itself feels unstable. Victoria's mind races through contingencies, backup generators, third-party technicians, emergency services, but each option comes with delay, and delay is dangerous. She looks toward the engineering team clustered around a frozen control screen. Why aren't we restoring power? She demands. One of them answers without looking up. The system architecture is custom. We don't have full manual override credentials. Another adds quietly, only one person does. Silence falls in a different way now, not chaotic. Heavy. All eyes drift toward Ethan. He stands a few feet away, soot faintly smudging his collar, Lily's backpack still slung over his shoulder. The man she terminated. In front of everyone. Victoria feels the weight of it. Leadership is easy when you are certain. It is much harder when you are wrong. For the first time that morning, she walks toward him without authority in her stride. Not elevated, not commanding, just direct. Mr. Cole. He looks at her, steady but guarded. Her voice is different now. No edge. No clinical distance. We need your help. The words hang in the air. Around them, executives pretend not to watch. Assistants freeze mid-step. Security officers glance between them. The power dynamic has shifted. 10 minutes ago, she held his livelihood in her hand. Now, she stands asking for his expertise, publicly. I understand the circumstances, she continues, her tone controlled but urgent. But we have employees trapped. If you can stabilize the grid. Ethan does not interrupt her. He listens. He hears the strain under her composure. He hears the radio again. Car 2 occupant is wheezing. We need airflow restored. He feels Lily's small fingers tighten around his hand. Helping means stepping back into the building that just rejected him. It means re-entering a space where his daughter watched him dismissed. It means risking further humiliation if something goes wrong. Not for pride, for dignity. He looks at Victoria for a long second. Are you asking me as an employee, he says quietly, or as the man who designed your grid? The question is not defiant. It is honest. Victoria does not hesitate this time. I'm asking you as the person who can save them. There is no applause, no dramatic swell, just the low hum of emergency lighting and the faint pounding from above. Ethan glances down at Lily. Her eyes are wide but steady. "Daddy," she whispers, barely audible over the radios. "You fix things. That is it. No speech about fairness. No demand for apology. Just truth from the one person who matters most." He exhales once, then hands Lily gently back to the receptionist who had been watching her. "Stay with her," he says softly. "I'll be right back." He turns toward Victoria. "I'll need full access," he says. She nods immediately. "You have it." Security swipes him through the executive corridor without another word. The group descends toward the lower mechanical levels, emergency lights casting long shadows across concrete walls. The air grows warmer with each step. By the time they reach the grid room, the heat is unmistakable. The main control panel blinks with warning indicators. Several circuits have shut down entirely. Others are oscillating erratically. Ethan steps forward like a man returning to his own workshop. His movements are calm, measured. He scans the load distribution display, then kneels beside the auxiliary transformer housing. He doesn't speak for nearly 30 seconds. Victoria stands behind him, watching in tense silence. Finally, he says quietly, "This isn't just overload." One of the engineers leans closer. "What do you mean?" Ethan gestures toward a secondary feed line. "The timing sequence is wrong. The surge didn't originate from cooling failure alone. It was triggered." Victoria stiffens. "Triggered how?" He points to a manual override entry in the system log. "Someone manipulated the breaker sequencing at exactly 9:47. That forced a delayed cascade across 3 zones." The room goes very still. "That's not possible," an engineer mutters. "Only executive-level credentials can access that timing control." Ethan looks up slowly. "It's not random," he says. "This was deliberate." Above them, the radio continues to crackle with trapped voices. The stakes shift instantly. This is no longer a systems malfunction. It is sabotage. The merger is not just at risk from technical failure. It may have been targeted. Victoria feels the implications ripple through her. If this was intentional, then someone inside her leadership circle timed it perfectly right after she removed the one person most capable of identifying the pattern. The humiliation from earlier does not disappear, but it transforms. She is no longer simply the powerful executive who made a hard call. She may have been maneuvered. Ethan stands, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I can isolate the cascade and bring the primary grid back online," he says. "But if someone did this once, they may try again." "And the elevators?" Victoria asks. "I can restore airflow within minutes once we reroute power," he replies. "Full descent after stabilization." She nods, tension visible now in the tight set of her jaw. "Do it." He steps toward the control board, fingers moving confidently across switches and manual overrides most of the team has never touched. He isolates the secondary feed, reroutes the load, recalibrates the transformer threshold. The emergency lights flicker harder, then stabilize. Above them, a radio voice breaks through. Air circulation returning to car 2. A collective breath releases in the room. But Ethan is not smiling. He is scanning the logs again. Because this was not an accident, and somewhere in the tower, someone is watching to see if their disruption worked. The crisis has not ended. It has deepened. And now the battle is not just against failing systems. It is against betrayal. Peak injustice has shifted into something sharper, more dangerous. And as the tower trembles between collapse and recovery, one truth stands clear. The man they dismissed is the only reason it is still standing. The grid stabilizes for a moment, just long enough for hope to return. Air begins circulating in the stalled elevators. The temperature on the server floor drops by 2 degrees. Radios quiet slightly as panic shifts to cautious optimism. Then a deep mechanical shudder rolls through the basement. Ethan's head snaps toward the generator housing. "No," he mutters under his breath. The backup generator, the last safety net, coughs once, twice. Then it dies. The emergency lights flicker violently and plunge half the lower mechanical floor into darkness. A sharp metallic crack echoes through the corridor, followed by a blast of hot air that smells like oil and burnt insulation. Within seconds, thin gray smoke begins curling out from the generator casing. "Generator failure!" someone shouts into the radio. The ventilation fans hesitate, then stall again. Smoke thickens. The lower level becomes a maze of shadows and heat. Ethan moves fast, grabbing a flashlight from the tool rack. "The overload backfed into the generator," he says. "It wasn't insulated properly after the first surge." He rushes toward the manual release panel that controls the emergency intake system. If he can vent the room and reset the generator manually, he can prevent total collapse. Behind him, Victoria's voice comes through the portable radio. "What's happening down there?" "Backup's down," an engineer answers, coughing. "Smoke building." "Get him out of there," she orders instinctively. But Ethan is already halfway down the narrow service corridor. The heat intensifies with every step. He reaches the maintenance gate that separates the generator housing from the rest of the floor and slams his hand against the control pad. Nothing. The gate has auto-sealed due to smoke detection. He tries again. Still nothing. Behind him, the corridor lights flicker once more and go out completely. Darkness swallows the space except for the thin beam of his flashlight cutting through smoke. Upstairs, in the lobby, Lily sits in a chair near the security desk, her knees pulled to her chest. The receptionist holds her hand, but Lily's eyes are fixed on the security monitor mounted on the wall. On the screen, she can see her father's silhouette moving through gray haze. "Is he okay?" she asks, her voice small. The receptionist hesitates. "He's working," she says gently. Victoria stands frozen in front of the same monitor. For the first time all day, she feels completely powerless. She watches Ethan disappear into thickening smoke. She hears the generator casing pop again. The emergency responders she called are stuck in traffic outside the building. Gridlock caused by panicked employees flooding the parking exits. Minutes stretch longer than they should. "Ventilation is failing," someone says over the radio. "We need him clear." Victoria grips the edge of the desk, knuckles whitening. This is the moment leadership feels different. Not strategic, not calculated, raw. If he does not make it out, if the smoke overwhelms him, if the gate does not release, then this entire chain of events will trace back to one decision. Her decision. She had removed the one person who understood the grid. She had dismissed his warning. She had prioritized control over context. And now he is down there alone. "Mr. Cole," she says into the radio, her voice no longer composed. "Pull back. That's an order." Static answers her. Then his voice, strained but steady. "If I don't vent the intake manually, the generator housing will ignite. Then you lose the whole floor." Another crack splits the air. The security footage flickers. On the screen, they see him reach the sealed maintenance gate and slam his shoulder into it. It doesn't move. Smoke thickens around him. Billy slides off the chair, walking closer to the monitor despite the receptionist's gentle attempt to stop her. "Daddy," she whispers. Victoria feels something in her chest tighten painfully. This is no longer about mergers, or reputation, or liability. This is about a father inside a burning mechanical floor while his child watches. Emergency responders radio in again. Traffic still blocked. 2 minutes out at best. 2 minutes can be forever. Down below, Ethan drops to one knee, coughing as smoke burns his lungs. He wipes soot from his eyes and shines the flashlight along the base of the gate. There, the manual release latch. Old design. Mechanical, not electronic. He crawls forward, fingers searching through heat and grime until they find the recessed handle. He pulls. Nothing. He pulls harder, muscles straining. The metal groans but doesn't give. Above him, a small flame licks along the edge of the generator casing. "Come on," he mutters, more to himself than anyone else. He shifts his footing, braces his shoulder against the lower frame, and pulls the manual release with both hands. For one terrifying second, it holds. Then the latch snaps free with a violent clang. The gate jerks upward a few inches. He forces himself through the gap, dragging his tool bag behind him as smoke rolls heavier in the enclosed space he just escaped. Upstairs, the security monitor clears enough to show him stumbling back into the corridor, alive, still moving. Victoria exhales a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Lily gasps softly, pressing her hand to the screen. On the lower floor, Ethan leans briefly against the concrete wall, chest heaving, soot streaking his face and shirt. He looks exhausted, overwhelmed, but he does not stop. He lifts the flashlight again. "There's still time," he says into the radio, voice rough but steady. "I can reroute from the tertiary panel. We're not done." The lowest point has come and nearly taken him with it. Smoke still lingers. The generator is crippled. Emergency services are only just arriving. Everything feels fragile, uncertain, one wrong move from collapse, and yet, even covered in soot, lungs burning, job already lost. Ethan keeps moving, because upstairs his daughter is watching, and he refuses to let this be the moment she learns that heroes don't always come back. The tertiary panel hums under Ethan's hands. His fingers move with steady precision despite the soot streaking his skin and the ache in his lungs. He isolates the damaged generator feed, reroutes power through a bypass circuit he designed years earlier but hoped never to use, and recalibrates the load distribution manually. "Stand by," he says into the radio. Upstairs, the lobby is silent. Victoria stands near the security desk, Lily beside her now, both watching the monitors that flicker between floors and system diagrams. Executives hover nearby, their earlier confidence stripped away. Then the building breathes. Lights surge back to life, not violently this time, but steadily, a gradual glow spreading across ceilings and hallways. On the elevator monitor, Car 2 begins to descend, slowly, carefully. A voice crackles through the radio. "Elevators are moving. Repeat, elevators are moving." A collective gasp ripples through the lobby. When the first elevator doors slide open, the trapped employees step out unsteady but safe. One woman clutches her inhaler, tears streaking her face as security helps her forward. Applause erupts almost instinctively, raw, grateful, overwhelming. It echoes off marble and glass. It sounds like relief. Ethan emerges from the stairwell moments later, walking into the lobby under bright lights once again. His shirt is smudged black. His hair is damp with sweat. He looks nothing like a corporate hero. He looks like a father who just did his job. The applause grows louder when people see him, but he does not raise his hand. He does not smile for it. He scans the room, finds Lily first. She breaks from the receptionist's side and runs to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He kneels despite the exhaustion in his knees and holds her tight. "You fixed it," she whispers. "We're okay," he answers. Only then does he stand. Victoria approaches him slowly. The entire lobby is watching. The easy path would be to let the moment end here, to accept the rescue, thank him privately, issue a controlled statement later. But Ethan's expression tells her something else is unfinished. "I need 5 minutes in the boardroom," he says quietly. "With everyone who has executive clearance." Her brow tightens slightly. He continues, voice calm but firm. "The failure wasn't accidental." A murmur spreads through the crowd. Within minutes, the executive team gathers inside the glass-walled boardroom overlooking the lobby. Staff members linger outside, aware something larger is unfolding. Ethan stands at the head of the long table, soot-streaked but composed. A tablet rests in his hands, connected to the building system logs. He taps the screen, and the display fills with timestamps. "At 9:47 this morning," he says, "an executive-level credential accessed the breaker sequencing panel. The timing offset created a delayed cascade across 3 zones. That cascade forced the overload that took the grid down." One of the senior vice presidents shifts in his chair. "Are you suggesting I'm stating facts?" Ethan replies evenly. "This was not a malfunction. It was initiated." Victoria's eyes move across the room, calculating. "Only executive credentials can manipulate that timing control," Ethan continues, "and the access came from inside this building." The room tightens. He enlarges the log entry. A name appears beside the credential authorization. Silence. The executive in question pales. "It was a temporary override," the man stammers. "I was trying to stress test the system before the merger call, without notifying infrastructure," Ethan asks. The man falters. The implication settles over the table like a weight. A stress test at that exact hour, minutes after Ethan was removed, would destabilize the grid during the most critical moment of the merger, delay the call, create doubt, possibly sabotage the agreement. Victoria straightens slowly. Her voice, when she speaks, is controlled but unyielding. "You manipulated the building's core systems during a merger transition," she says to the executive. "Without disclosure. It was precautionary," he insists weakly. "It endangered lives," she answers. The room goes still. This is the crossroads. Protect the company's image, or protect the truth. If this scandal surfaces publicly, investors will ask questions. The merger may be scrutinized. Headlines will follow. Victoria could contain it quietly. Shift blame. Minimize. Instead, she turns toward the glass walls of the boardroom, toward the staff gathered beyond them. "Open the doors," she says. They do. Employees filter closer, sensing the gravity of the moment. Victoria steps forward, visible to everyone in the lobby. Her voice carries clearly. "Today, a deliberate systems override caused a failure in this building," she announces. "It was not the fault of infrastructure. It was not the fault of maintenance." Her gaze moves to Ethan. "It was my failure." The words land heavily. "I terminated Mr. Ethan Cole based on incomplete information, and during a moment when I should have listened more carefully. He prevented greater damage before the failure, and he saved every person in this building after it." She pauses, not for drama, but because the truth is uncomfortable. "I was wrong." There is no whispering now, no side conversations, just stillness. She turns fully toward Ethan. In front of every employee here, I apologize. Not quietly, not privately, publicly. You did not violate this company's trust. You protected it. Ethan says nothing. Lily stands beside him, holding his hand. Victoria continues, her voice firm again, but different. As of this moment, Ethan Cole is reinstated, not as maintenance supervisor. Effective immediately, he will serve as Director of Infrastructure Integrity, reporting directly to my office. His responsibility will be to oversee all operational safeguards and executive access protocols. A ripple moves through the staff. Respect, real, earned respect, shifts in the air. The executive responsible for the override is escorted out quietly by security. No shouting, no spectacle, just consequence. Victoria steps back, no longer the untouchable authority figure, but a leader who chose transparency over pride. Ethan kneels once more beside Lily. "Looks like we're staying," he tells her softly. She smiles up at him, fierce and proud. Around them, employees approach not with forced corporate praise, but with gratitude. The power has returned. The elevators are running. The merger will proceed. But something else has shifted more permanently. The quiet maintenance supervisor who was dismissed as a liability now stands at the center of the company's future. Not because he demanded recognition, because he earned it. And in the bright lobby of Hale Financial Tower, dignity is restored, not in whispers, but in full view of everyone who watched him fall and rise. Weeks pass, and the building no longer smells like smoke. The merger with Henderson Capital closes successfully. The announcement is steady, confident, free of the chaos that nearly defined it. Analysts praise Hale Financial's resilience under pressure. Investors call it proof of strong leadership. But inside the company, the real change is quieter. Victoria does not simply move on, she restructures. Executive override privileges are reduced and monitored. Infrastructure reports now go directly through Ethan's department before reaching the board. Emergency simulations are conducted with full transparency. Decisions are reviewed from the ground up, not just the top down. For the first time, maintenance staff are invited into strategy meetings when operational changes are discussed. Not as observers, as contributors. The culture shifts from rigid hierarchy to informed accountability, and it starts with small gestures. Victoria begins walking the lower floors once a week. She learns names she had previously only seen on payroll summaries. She asks questions and listens to answers. It is not a public campaign. There are no press releases about cultural transformation. It is simply different. Ethan's new office is not extravagant. A modest glass-walled space overlooking the mechanical control center he knows better than anyone. His title reads Director of Infrastructure Integrity, but the work is the same at its core. Protect the building. Protect the building. Only now he has authority to enforce what he once had to request. His salary increase stabilizes the mortgage immediately. The late notices stop. The quiet weight in his chest eases. Health insurance coverage expands. The tuition assistance program renews automatically under his new contract. He doesn't celebrate extravagantly. He updates the family budget spreadsheet. He deposits the first larger paycheck. He fixes the small leak in the kitchen faucet that he had postponed for months. Most importantly, he retrieves the custody agreement from the locked drawer and reads it again, not with anxiety but with calm certainty. Financial instability is no longer a looming shadow. Lily's world remains steady. One Saturday afternoon, Brook Hollow Academy hosts its annual Community STEM Showcase. Parents, teachers, and local business leaders are invited to attend. Billy's class has built simple circuit boards powered by small battery packs. Ethan takes a half day to be there. He kneels beside Lily's table while she proudly demonstrates how her tiny light bulb glows when the circuit closes. Electricity isn't scary, she tells him confidently. It just needs to be respected. He smiles. Across the gymnasium, a quiet stir passes through the parents gathered near the entrance. Victoria Hale has arrived, not with a press team, not with cameras. She walks in alone, dressed simply, greeting the principal with a handshake rather than a speech. Some parents recognize her immediately, others don't. She makes her way slowly between student displays, asking questions, listening carefully, genuinely engaged. When she reaches Lily's table, she pauses. Lily looks up and recognizes her instantly. There is no fear this time. Victoria crouches slightly to meet Lily at eye level. "I hear you're building the next generation of electrical engineers," she says gently. Lily grins. "My dad says I can fix anything if I learn how it works." Victoria glances at Ethan. There is no tension between them now. Only a quiet understanding shaped by a shared crisis. "I believe that," Victoria replies. She turns back to Lily. "And your dad was right." The interaction is brief. No speeches, no applause. But it matters, because it is not staged. It is acknowledgement. Later that week, Ethan implements a new building-wide emergency training program that includes junior staff and interns. His approach is steady, practical, inclusive. He does not become flashy. He becomes reliable. And that reliability reshapes how the company operates. At home, life remains simple. Dinner at 6. Homework at the kitchen table. Laundry folded on Sunday evenings. The only difference is the absence of constant financial strain humming beneath everything. Lily sleeps easier. Ethan breathes easier. He did not receive charity. He did not receive sympathy. He earned respect through competence, courage, and integrity when it mattered most. The tower stands taller now, not because of the merger, but because the foundation beneath it is stronger. And in a quiet house in Brook Hollow, a single father closes his laptop at the end of the night, knowing that stability, the thing he sacrificed so much to protect, is finally secure. The kitchen light glows softly against quiet walls. Outside, Brook Hollow has settled into evening. Porch lights flicker on one by one down the street. A distant train horn hums through the cool air. Inside the coal house, everything feels small and steady. Lily sits at the table with her math workbook open, pencil tucked behind her ear the way she's seen her dad do with a screwdriver. Her legs swing lightly beneath the chair while she works through long division. At the stove, Ethan flips 2 grilled cheese sandwiches in a cast-iron pan. The smell of butter and toasted bread fills the room. Simple, familiar, safe. "Daddy?" Lily says without looking up. "Yeah? Are you still mad at the boss lady?" He pauses for just a second, then slides the sandwiches onto plates and carries them to the table. He sits across from her, elbows resting lightly on the wood worn smooth from years of dinners and homework sessions. "No," he says gently. "Sometimes people just forget to listen." Lily thinks about that, really thinks about it. Then she nods once, satisfied. "Good," she says. "Because you listen." He smiles at that, not a proud smile, not a victorious one, just a quiet, grateful one. Outside, the town is calm. Inside, the town is calm. Inside, stability has returned. Not because someone powerful stepped in at the last minute, not because luck intervened, but because a single dad chose integrity when it would have been easier to walk away. Because he kept showing up, kept fixing what he could, kept protecting what mattered most. And at a small kitchen table under warm light, that is more than enough. If this story touched you, subscribe to Just Dad Things for more single dad stories, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.